This is the story of Rishi Sunak, a man who lives on a different planet from the rest of us. 1980. Sunak is born at Southampton General Hospital. He goes on to attend Oakmount Private Prep School and Winchester College, one of the country's most expensive private schools. 1996. The teenage Sunak is a keen supporter of the Conservative Party. In an article for Winchester College magazine, the 16-year-old Sunak bitterly opposes the Labour Party's proposal to introduce a national minimum wage of £3.60 an hour. He campaigns for the Tories at the next election. 1998. Sunak leaves Winchester for Oxford. There he becomes president of the university's Investment Society. The 19-year-old Sunak and his Oxford friends spend their student days organising role-playing games where they pretend to be bankers. The young Sunak tells a reporter, "It's exciting with the buzz of the real situation, especially when the bankers compute which team has made the most money." 2001. He appears in a BBC documentary in which he discusses the social calibre of his friends.
I have friends who are aristocrats, I have friends who are upper class, I have friends who are, working class, but I'm not working class.
That year, he wins a place on the graduate training scheme of the US investment bank Goldman Sachs. 2004. Sunak moves to California. There he meets Akshata Murthy, the daughter of the Indian billionaire businessman Narayana Murthy, founder of the IT giant Infosys. Akshata Murthy's 1% stake in her father's company is worth more than $100 million. 2006. Sunak returns to London, where he becomes a partner at the hedge fund TCI. 2007. Sunak is part of a small team of hedge fund bosses who, according to the Times newspaper, liked the touch paper on the 2008 financial crisis. He shares in a £100 million fortune after TCI forces a deal that loads the Royal Bank of Scotland with crippling debt and leads to a £45.5 billion government bailout. The crash that follows will decimate the living standards of millions of Britons. Sunak, meanwhile, becomes a multimillionaire in his mid-20s. 2009. As the financial crisis rages, Sunak and a colleague, Patrick de Gorse, decamp to California and launch a new hedge fund, Telem Partners. The fund is registered in the Cayman Islands, a notorious offshore tax haven. De Gorse will later be landed with an £8 million tax avoidance bill. Sunak is reunited with Akshata Murthy in California. The couple rent a $20,000 a month beachfront apartment in Santa Monica. In August, they marry. 2013. By now, Sunak is set on becoming an MP. He moves back to the UK and starts looking for a seat to stand in. 2015. He becomes the Conservative MP for Richmond in Yorkshire, despite having no discernible connection to the town. He buys a stately home in the constituency, set in acres of parkland with a private lake. He now owns 4 houses that cost a total of £12 million. 2019. Sunak backs Boris Johnson to be Tory leader. Johnson wins and makes him Chief Secretary to the Treasury, one rung below Chancellor. February 2020. Dominic Cummings executes a Downing Street coup in which Chancellor Sajid Javid is forced to resign and Sunak is given his job. As Chancellor, Sunak now has the power to set taxes in the UK. What isn't known at the time is that he's listed as a beneficiary of trusts registered in the tax havens of the British Virgin Islands and Cayman Islands. March 2020. A new flu-like virus that emerged in China is now spreading rapidly in the UK. Meanwhile, a sudden and noticeable change occurs in the new Chancellor's social media output, with the previous uninspiring and sometimes awkward content being replaced with slick posts in which Sunak seeks to present himself as both dynamic and very normal. It is the birth of Brand Rishi, a PR campaign led by social media consultants paid for by the taxpayer. As Britain goes into lockdown, Sunak announces a series of economic measures to weather the crisis, including the furlough scheme. The Brand Rishi team goes into overdrive, attempting to mould public opinion of the Chancellor in an effort to ensure he gets political credit for the government's approach. In reality, the economic measures put in place by Sunak are racked by fraud, waste and cronyism. Under Sunak's watch, total fraud against the taxpayer quadruples in a 2-year span from £5.5 billion to £21 billion. As Chancellor, Sunak also has ultimate responsibility for the purchase of personal protective equipment for doctors and nurses on the COVID front line. It soon emerges that the government set up a VIP lane that channeled billions of pounds of PPE contracts to friends and associates of the Conservative Party, often in exchange for unusable equipment. One of those is Tory peer Baroness Michelle Mone, who's given a £200 million contract for largely unusable PPE. She buys herself a yacht. July 2020. Sunak plans to launch a scheme subsidising people's meals at cafes and restaurants in an effort to get people eating out again. He spends £2 million of taxpayers' money on focus groups and polling to craft the messaging around the scheme, but fails to inform the government's chief medical officer or chief scientific advisor about his idea. The scheme, named Eat Out to Help Out, is launched in a PR blitz at the centre of which is brand Rishi. Research will later show that the scheme caused a national rise in COVID infections of between 8 and 17%, while the economic benefits were short-lived. Sir Chris Whitty, England's chief medical officer, privately refers to the scheme as Eat Out to Help Out the Virus. That month, Sunak is pictured with his new Ember Bluetooth-enabled drinks beaker, allowing him to set the exact temperature of his coffee on an app on his phone. The cup retails at £180. June 2021. Sunak applies for planning permission for a new building in the grounds of his constituency home in Yorkshire to house an indoor swimming pool and a plant room. 2 weeks later, Sunak says he will scrap the £20 a week uplift to universal credit. More than 40 charities warn that cutting the uplift will put young people at risk of repeat homelessness. March 2022. The brand Rishi team stages a photo op, having the Chancellor fill up a car at a Sainsbury's petrol station. It soon emerges the Kia Rio is not his, and was instead borrowed from a Sainsbury's employee for the stunt. Sunak then struggles to use a contactless card. April 2022. Sunak is fined by the police for breaking his government's own lockdown laws. That same month, Sunak and his wife are accused of collecting blood money as it's revealed that Infosys, their family's company in which they hold a significant shareholding, is continuing to operate in Russia following Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Days later, it's revealed that Sunak's wife, Akshata Murthy, is a non-dom, a special tax designation allowing individuals who reside in the UK to say their permanent home is actually abroad, limiting their UK tax liability. It means Murthy is only taxed on her UK income, while her foreign income, including dividends from the couple's share in Infosys, are untaxed in Britain. It's estimated that Murthy's non-dom status saves Sunak and his wife £20 million in tax. At the time, the move was entirely legal. Soon after that, it's revealed that until 6 months ago, Sunak held a US green card. Green card holders must pay US tax on their worldwide income and pledge that America is their forever home. In October 2021, when he gave up his green card, Sunak had been Chancellor for 18 months and a British MP for more than 6 years. Friends of Sunak tell the Telegraph newspaper that if he doesn't become Prime Minister before the next election, he'll quit Parliament and move to California. If it became apparent that he wasn't going to be Prime Minister, they say, he would just go. According to the well-sourced article, it is an open secret that Mr. Sunak is attracted to the idea of a future life in California, a place he reportedly referred to as home during a recent official visit there. May 2022. Sunak and his wife appear on the Sunday Times rich list with a £730 million fortune. July 2022. Boris Johnson resigns. The next day, Sunak launches his campaign to succeed Johnson with a slick video and the website readyforrishi.com. Turns out the website domain name was registered 6 months earlier. August 2022. Campaigning for the Tory leadership, Sunak boasts to Tory members in Royal Tunbridge Wells that while he was serving as Chancellor, he'd taken money from deprived urban areas and given it to wealthy towns. The comment is secretly recorded.
I managed to start changing the funding formulas to make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas, then that needed to be undone.
September 2022. Sunak loses the leadership election to Liz Truss. October 2022. Truss lasts just 49 days as Prime Minister before she resigns, outlasted by a lettuce. Tory MPs fix the subsequent vote to select her replacement, making Sunak Prime Minister. Neither Conservative Party members nor the wider public are given a chance to express an opinion on who should lead the country. By now, Sunak's new private heated swimming pool is under construction. It will use so much energy that the local electricity network will have to be upgraded to meet its power demands. Meanwhile, many council-run baths, including in his local area, have been forced to reduce their opening hours owing to increased energy costs.